Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the South Kingstown Technical Review Committee to order. It is 9:05 a.m. on February 11, 2026. First agenda item is roll call. We have Dennis Bernier, Mark Comboy, Jamie Gorman, Susan Axelrod representing the Planning Board, Rich Bourbonnais. We also have Jamie Rabbit, Director of Planning, proceeding over this meeting. We also have staff from the Planning Department, Brian Wagner and Lynn Smith. Our second agenda item is approval of minutes from January 14th, 2026. I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes. Thank you, Mr. Gorman. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Rich. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the January 14th meeting minutes? Okay, thank you, Susan. Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the meeting minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining would be Susan Axelrod. Motion carries. Our next agenda item is item C, TRC review. One minor multi-household land development project for 201 Kingston Road, proposed demolition of a one single-family residential dwelling to accommodate a proposed 5-unit multi-household land development project located at 201 Kingston Road, AP 32-4, Lot 21, Ashworth Investments, LLC is the applicant and owner. Just before we proceed on that, I just want to let everybody know, I have a 10 o'clock meeting, so I will be leaving shortly before 10 a.m. Brian Wagner, who's the Deputy Director sitting to your left, my right, will be then proceeding over the matters that we haven't gotten through, and Brian, again, will take over, and I apologize for having to leave at 10, but I have a prior commitment that came up. So I believe we have representatives of the applicant here. So please go to the podium, bottom right button. Makes you loud. Thank you.
You guys able to hear me?
If you hear the echo, it's not so much that we can hear you. You gotta kind of hear the echo, and the recording will pick up.
Okay, gotcha. My name's Adam Drake. I'm with Stonefield Engineering and Design. I'm here to represent Ashworth Investments and the proposed project at 2001 Kingstown Road. If you want me to give a kind of a brief introduction of the project, and then we can go into any questions and comments you guys might have. So this is a proposed 5-unit multi-household land development project. Each unit is going to be 1,200 square feet approximately. Each one will have 3 bedrooms, 2 stories. There are 3, are we able to pan to sheet C5, the site plan? Thank you. So those 3 buildings on the east-hand side of the project site will have basements as well. The 2 along the road, or closest to the road, will just have first floor, second floor. So with these proposed units, we're doing site improvements, which include parking facilities, which you can see here. We have 5 kind of universal parking spots for visitors located off the Kingstown Road. And then if you actually go to sheet C6, so here on the northwest corner of the site, you can see 2 proposed subsurface infiltration systems. So these are designed to capture all of the runoff from the impervious surfaces, as well as some runoff from the proposed open area. And these will infiltrate everything up to the 100-year storm event. And we also have 2 proposed water quality units to meet all local and state treatment requirements here. So we are in full compliance with the zoning ordinance. We are, however, requesting one waiver from the subdivision regulations, which is building separation. The required minimum is 50 feet, and right now we're proposing a minimum of 12-foot separation. The idea behind this is as opposed to doing kind of a typical multifamily style, we wanted to do separated single-family units to give it kind of more of a appeal to families as opposed to some of the more typical smaller units. So if you guys want to kind of go into any questions or comments, suggestions you guys might have, I'd be happy to answer.
All right, thank you, Adam. Dennis?
Good morning, Dennis Berger from Marshall Town, South Kingstown. I do have 2 questions. There are several more that I'll take care of them later on. First of all, water supply closest hydrant location, please.
Yeah, I don't know if you're able to see it on the plans here. I believe it's just south of the project site. I'm sorry, I might have to believe it's shown on the plans. I think it's actually located down the road a little bit here. We can try to pull it up. Sorry, I don't have the exact number for you, but I believe it's about 100 feet off of that northern property line. We can show an expanded plan of the actual distance on a future edition.
Yes, please. I would like to know because you're putting densely populated area in there with housing and cars and vehicles and things of that nature. I need to make sure that we have a water supply in case something happens in the far unit, unit 3.
Okay.
We can get into it. Also, my next concern is going to be fire department access. Once we get in with a fire truck or mortgage vehicle is the ladder truck, we turn our radius and we enter in going towards unit 3. You have to also remember the backup space that we need to get in the hammerhead to turn that truck back out.
Correct. So
that looks like on this diagram, a very narrow backing point by unit 5.
Yeah, we have run fire truck simulations in-house. We can definitely provide those drawings, but from our results of the standard ladder truck, we are able to kind of pull into that furthest lot and then use that hammerhead to turn around. And we'd be happy to provide that to the...
Because what I'll do is I will provide you my ladder truck length, width, and turning radius as required.
Okay.
And you can see if it matches it. If not, you will have to make adjustments accordingly for that truck.
Okay.
That's my 2 concerns at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Mark?
I have a question on the site plan on the drainage system that you're proposing. That's called an R tank, I believe. It's one of the newer types of stormwater treatments and detention. So I have a question pertaining to that because you're proposing 2 large systems pretty much on it looks like the north portion of the property. First of all, how close are those systems to the existing or the proposed buildings that you have there?
So I believe those are that 10-foot minimum from the proposed buildings, and then I believe it's 20 feet between each system.
Okay. And are those two units or two buildings that are closest to the systems, do those have basements?
Those two, we do not have basements specifically because of the drainage system.
Okay, good. I had a couple more questions on those. So, how are those inspected and maintained? Because they look like a closed system. There's no inspection type ports or anything shown on that plan.
Yeah, so there will be, they might not be depictable on here, but there is typically inspection ports, and then you'll use a vac truck to clean out. And we did provide a separate operations and maintenance manual that kind of goes over their specific process.
Okay, so just to reinstate that you're going to be providing proper ports for inspections on those infiltration systems?
Correct. We will be providing access to perform the maintenance.
Okay, and is this being reviewed by DEM as well?
Correct. So once, our plan is, once we get all the feedback here and make any adjustments, then we're going to go forward with DEM.
Okay. Now these systems, since you're designing these for large storms, have you done a mounding analysis on those?
We have not performed a mounding analysis just because we need that required separation from groundwater. But we have performed test pits in this area and confirmed that there's good soil.
Okay. I believe that's pretty much what I have on just the drainage system. And I'm sure you're aware that you're going to need a physical alteration permit from the state.
Correct.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gorman?
Good morning. I had a couple, three questions. One being the survey references a overlap with Zeus Drive property. So if you can take a look at that. I'm just curious how that's going to be, reconciled if there's conflicting survey information.
Yeah, so I believe what happened there is we were taking reference from an older survey, and it wasn't lining up perfectly. I would have to defer to the surveyor, but I believe in this case the kind of most recent survey would take precedence.
Just ask for some clarification on that because it is essentially within the building footprint, the corner marker. Separately, so this is in the Kingstown Road Special Management District. I know we discussed back and forth by email regarding some of the requirements, one of those being that any of the residential dwellings have the garage doors facing away from Kingstown Road. It looks like on the plan you have at least one or two garages, so that would need a variance from that requirement.
Okay, so those three along the rear of the property is what you're referring to?
Correct.
Okay.
And then just formality, this is early in the process, just to contemplate dumpster or trash location, receptacle locations, and then what type of mailbox cluster is going to be required by Postal Service if there is one, just so you can include that on the future plan.
Okay. Just kind of cycling back to the garage door questions, since these are kind of offset from the road with town being
Still required.
Understood. I'm just wondering, is that more willing of a variance?
Still required.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, you could, if it looks like your design, it would either be the removal of the garages or requesting the variance under the Unified Development Plan Review, which essentially is the same process or additional step that you'd be going through.
Okay, understood.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Gorman. And again, just for clarity, the regulations don't discuss where the garage is located. It's just it can't be facing the street.
Okay.
And again, the waivers are for good design, not just because your layout shows them in the orientation they are. So, Mr. Gorman, Mr. Bourbonnais.
Real simple. I haven't really looked extensively at this. A couple things I'm noticing though is, I think you're being cautious about what might come off the state road into this property, and I think you have to be really, really careful of that. We had a property up the street that was just overwhelmed with water, and they put a curb in, but it still just became it's still an issue up there. There's a lot of volume water coming off of that roadway. Just be cautious of that. But you've got that 140 contour, and what I'm just, it's not really pushing water necessarily back to that catch basin the way it's laid out. And the other issue, another smaller thing is that, well, it's not even that small, but on the southern boundary, you've got a 140.4 at the top of curb, but then it drops down to a 139. I think you got a little bit of a bust in there, and it's just a matter of figuring that out, which makes me think that, and I was really, the reason why I looked at that is that slope coming off the back of that curb is kind of steep, and that 140 not kind of being there is, I think, sort of exacerbates that issue. It's not much of an issue, but it's certainly something that can be resolved, and just take a look at it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely look at it.
Yeah, I mean, again, not a big deal, and I haven't really dived into this. I don't know what your watersheds are. I'd like to think that swale along the back is still, maintaining some of the existing flows. There is that an active stream in the back, or is that thing, is it intermittent?
An active stream in the back?
Yeah, in the back there. There is a stream there. Oh, is there a stream? I thought there was a stream that ran through here. It doesn't go all the way down?
Not on our property.
Right. I just want to be careful that we're not discharging as a point discharge to the abutting property. So we're going to be looking for that, and we'll look at the narrative. But you just don't want a point discharge where it might have been sheet flow.
Definitely.
All right, and that's where we end up with problems when it comes time to issuing a CO, and then we say, listen, there's somebody calls and said, I never got water like this. It's washing out, whatever, and there's a driveway there, but I thought there was a stream beyond that, but I don't, maybe not. But I just be cautious of that.
Okay.
All right. And that's all I have at this point.
Thank you, Rich. Susan?
Good morning.
Your sewer connection, you're asking for a saddle, and you don't really know what it is right now. We've had other developments up the street. That sewer is very, very deep, and they actually ended up with a chimney. And I just making you aware that there may be other requirements as you get closer, and we might ask that you at least, and we might even have the elevations upstream, downstream. I don't know if you had those; they're not on here, but we could look at sewer, the invert up and invert down. We could actually determine those, and then maybe that helps you identify exactly what the depth is and what your requirements are going to be. But I wouldn't want to get into it and then realize there's a lot more entailed. But just to make you aware that it was pretty deep up further.
Okay. No, I appreciate that.
All right. Thanks.
Good morning.
Morning.
Could I ask your intentions for these houses? Are these rentals? Are these for sale? Like, what's your intention for these houses?
No, so I believe these are for sale. They're single-family units, so the idea is not to do these like short-term rentals or anything like that. They'll be sold off to ideally families.
Okay. Had you considered student rentals?
I would have to defer to the client, but I believe we wanted to avoid student rentals. That was kind of the idea of doing separated kind of single-family units.
Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons I ask is because each unit seems to have 4 parking spaces for a 3-bedroom house, which, I don't know, there's a little red flag going off there that's not intended for a couple with their kids, that it's more densely populated than a typical 3-bedroom house. Is that why the parking is so excessive?
No, so we provided 2 outdoor parking spaces kind of per regulation, and then we just have that interior garage. We don't really have a strong preference if you want to narrow those driveways a little bit to just make it 1 interior, 1 exterior parking space. I'm sure the applicant would be happy to do that.
And is that the logic behind the 5 extra parking spots along the southern border?
So that's just in case of, in case one of the families wants to have an event or, maybe they're doing a holiday there. We find that it's always used to have those backup spots for guests, just so they don't end up congesting either the private roadway or the public roadway you're parking on shoulders.
Okay, thank you. Are any of these units intended to be deed restricted, LMI affordable?
No, none of them are intended to be affordable.
Okay. So I have driven by that house that's there, and it looks like you're taking down that stone wall and clear cutting all the trees from the property. Is that what I'm seeing?
So the stone wall.
It's buried in snow and it's hard to see right now, but it looks like
okay.
at least the end of it's been knocked down, and I wonder why this development would remove all features from this property before you built.
So I believe there was some construction along that northern property line to relocate a water line, but that hasn't been development for this project.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, sorry. I don't know all of the specifics, but to my knowledge, we haven't started clear cutting the site for this project. I believe there was some site work for a water line that crossed our project site.
Okay. So you haven't taken down a section of that stone wall, and do you intend to take down the rest of that stone wall? Like, I don't see it on the site plans. It's mentioned in the existing site conditions, and then otherwise it seems to just be gone. And I wonder about that decision.
If you go to C4, the demolition plan, that the limits of that stone wall are to be removed. And then any of that vegetation kind of within the envelope or immediate yard is also to be removed. But if you go to the landscaping plan, it'll kind of show you the extent of what we plan to keep and replant.
I'm sorry, what you plan to keep? Sorry, my understanding looking at this is that there'll be no features left to be kept on this site, which sort of makes me sad. So is there a plan here that shows any of this to be kept?
I guess for clarity, your existing demolition plan and your existing conditions is different than what is actually in the field today.
Okay, understood.
So you're showing things to be removed that have already been removed.
Okay, I was unaware of that. We're working off of the most recent survey we've received. So anything that has been removed was not to our knowledge, and we didn't have an updated survey reflecting that.
Mr. Drake, when's the last time you've been on site?
I have not been on site since we received the survey for the project.
A year? 5 months?
Probably a year ago.
Is there a reason that the stone wall is to be removed? It doesn't seem to be where you have a driveway or any structures. It just seems sort of gratuitous.
Yeah, no, we just have some trees planted there. If we want to see the stone wall remain, we can accommodate that. There's no kind of severe proposed landscaping.
Okay. So a couple of other questions I have. You made a statement in your narrative application that you're asking for relief because you want an opportunity to create more diverse housing. Could you explain that statement, that these 3-bedroom little colonials will be diverse housing for South Kingstown?
Yeah, so the idea with the relief is to provide separated single-family homes that would be more appealable or more appealing to the average family, as opposed to kind of the more typical multi-household project where they're either conjoined. We didn't want to do multiple units in one, which might appeal to more of like a college crowd. We really wanted the separation and the larger footprints to accommodate families.
Okay. And do you believe that this design is, in turn, appealing to families?
We believe that this is appealing to kind of the single family.
Okay. So I wonder about the placement of your buildings along Kingstown Road and why you would orient, frankly, the ugly side toward Kingstown Road.
So we wanted access to our internal driveway just to reduce the number of curb cuts into Kingstown Road. And we did try to provide a nice landscape buffer so, you know, the whole road isn't just looking at the side of the building. So what you see here is three sour gum trees proposed blocking that first building. So mature height, those will grow to about 30 feet. And ideally that's going to screen, you know, this side of the building from the major roadway there.
Not being an arborist, I understand that.
Mhm.
What's the time frame between these 1.5-inch caliber trees screening the ugly side of a house?
So these trees grow, I believe, 12 to 24 inches per year, so it would take, you know, a good few years for these to mature.
Okay. So if you turned those houses to face Kingstown Road and simply had the garage entering from the side, you'd be able to create a more attractive sightline from Kingstown Road and yet maintain your internal driveway.
We can look at kind of adjusting the architecturals, if that's something that the town would like to see.
I cannot speak for the planning board, but I'm having trouble with this project.
Okay.
I'm having trouble with the clear-cut site, the stone wall's gone, and you've oriented your buildings so that, you're also asking for waivers for the distance between buildings, and I wonder, you've got 5 houses here that simply don't fit unless we offer you, you know, an 80% waiver on your site, on your distances between houses. And I guess I'd like to understand why this would be an appealing project for the planning board to approve. It's very dense. The houses are not configured well. The stone wall is gone. All the trees are gone, and the houses are very close together. And I'm not understanding, and there's no affordable units. So I'm just trying to understand the appeal of what this project would bring to the planning board, because personally, I'm not very appealed by it. So I'm just trying to understand maybe some features about it that I'm not seeing on the plans.
No, we appreciate your input. The way we looked at it would be, you know, a by right development here would be, as opposed to separating those buildings kind of on the eastern side, would be to just combine those three. We felt that that approach would have less of an appeal to kind of an average family. So with that waiver, instead of combining all of these units and just doing multifamilies, if we're given the waiver, we're able to separate these and provide kind of single-family units more appealing to kind of your average families, less so kind of college students in that area. And then we did provide, I know it's up on the screen here, we did provide a very comprehensive landscape plan. It's fully compliant with the town's ordinance.
The other alternative for creating an appropriate distance between buildings is to simply build 4. So why would we offer you this waiver on the distance between buildings as opposed to simply suggesting you reduce this by a unit and then offer us appropriate distance between buildings? Like, why would you choose this?
That is a fair question. I would kind of go back to what I was saying earlier, where if it's either 4 units separating at the required distance or just in multifamilies not separating the rear 3, it was kind of finding a balance in the middle there.
I think that's all my questions.
Okay.
I will point out that one of your application forms has the wrong address on it, so you might want to check your paperwork.
Yeah, we'll double check those.
Okay, you're listed as a Palmer Avenue address for this project on one of your application materials.
Okay, yeah, we'll go back and revise anything that has to be. Thank you.
you, Susan. I'm just going to try and summarize some of the things Ms. Axelrod said as it relates potentially to the regulatory side and your request for waivers. And I think what I'm not hearing from you is we can develop this site in a completely code compliant manner. We can do that in a single family manner with 50-foot separating distance, 100% code compliant. However, we can't fit 5 units, and that doesn't meet our pro forma. So I think you can fit single-family homes on this site at a higher density than 1. It's just not 5. So you're asking, to Susan Axelrod's point, the planning board to waive the standard to fit your client's needs, not necessarily the community's needs as it is articulated in the zoning code, because they have 50-foot setbacks between buildings. So I think you need to cross that hurdle. The second aspect of that is, when you ask for waivers, it says for specific planning and or better, in essence, better design. All I've heard from you tonight is my client feels that single-family homes are more marketable, but it doesn't correlate to what the town wrote in their zoning code as an end product. Okay, so I think you have to address that issue, and you made an assumption based on what your client wants, not necessarily what the code says. So again, 2 duplexes fit on this site with 50-foot separating distance. That would be 4 units. Potentially 2 duplexes with 50-foot separating distance with a single-family home potentially fit on this site without asking for those waivers, without asking for waivers for orientation of garages. Garages are choices. To ask for a waiver because you want garages, the alternative to that is not do a garage, and then you don't need a waiver. So the planning board, and I think what Susan Axelrod's saying is, they will entertain waivers when the design of the property and the efforts made by the applicant far outweigh the initial standards set in the code. And I'm not sure Ms. Axelrod is, and I don't want to put words in her, sees that change in the tipping of the scales to warrant a waiver request. I'll just go back on drainage. I think Mark Comboy and Rich Burgundy has touched upon that. I understand why you've located your storm drainage on the highest point on the site. Typically, it's on the lowest point of the site, but I don't necessarily understand all the inverts, that your invert for your catch basin is at the bottom of a basin, which is appropriate, yet your invert going into your stormwater is also at the bottom. So you literally, in my initial review of this, don't have any volume storage in your infiltration system. It's just into the bottom, and then it has to go into the ground. If it doesn't go into the ground, it comes back into the drainage system. So I would ask you to review your inverts associated with your stormwater to make sure you have actual storage in your infiltration units. If they're a 3-4 foot deep unit, you're not coming in at the top of those units, you're coming at a lower elevation in those units. I haven't run math or had an opportunity to talk to Mark or Rich about how your analysis and what your volume needs to be. But again, you're in essence pushing water uphill because the highest point on your site has the best soils.
No, I understand where you're coming from. If we're able to switch over to C7, we can just take a closer look at the stormwater sheet. But if you look, the grades of all these catch basins are set at a higher elevation than the top of our stormwater storage. So we will have volume in our infiltration systems. If you can zoom into maybe some of these callouts.
Your invert's 136
So
coming out of the basin, the first basin, and then look at your invert in your tank.
So I think you're
implications.
referring to the invert out of the water quality unit, is that what you're?
No, I'm looking at your invert in your road, your first basin. Your invert is 136.5.
So the invert out of that catch basin is what
Out
you're
of that
referring
catch
to.
basin, yep.
Yes, so there will be storage of that water in the pipe as well as in the catch basin, but it won't come out of the catch basin grate. It will all get infiltrated. We have provided a stormwater management report and calculations kind of showing this. And, you know, RIDM will also review it, so if they have any questions, you know, they will bring those up as well. But I don't know if you want to look at the top of modules elevation there, 134.7, you can compare that to all of our catch basin grates. And they're all above that elevation.
Again, I'm asking you to look closer at it, and I'm
Yep.
going to ask our two engineers to look closer at it. And again, I know DEM does a job, but we also have to do a job.
Okay, yeah, no, we can appreciate that, and we will go through this thoroughly.
I think I share some of the comments that went through both from fire and making sure that there's access, making sure that if they, you know, where the nearest hydrant is. I think Ms. Bernier may say at some point that, yes, there's a hydrant 100 plus feet away, but we need one closer given the density of this, and that would be proposed as part of this. I think you need to take a close look at the storm drainage and your infiltration systems. I think Mr. Bergen has pointed out also your side slopes on the southern side and how that potentially changes drainage patterns that exist today versus what you're proposing. And we want to make sure there isn't any channelization there or a point source discharge. I think also, from my perspective, you need to also address the fact that there is an existing driveway, and this is probably something that no one brought up yet. There's an existing driveway to that southern property. You are diminishing the size of that driveway. I think you need to address that and how that person now exits their property.
Yeah, so
And I think the owner may simply say, well, part of their driveway is on our land, but there are also prescriptive rights when people occupy land of others over time.
No, we actually have looked at that, and the applicants had discussions with the neighbor there. So we are still providing single lane access there for them. So there will be room for a single lane entrance and egress, and they still have their turnaround. So they will have full access. We were looking at kind of granting an access easement there to maintain the full driveway width. So that is another discussion we were going to look at.
I think you need to discuss, because they have, in essence, a PAP that's approved with a specific radius and a curb cut, and you're functionally reducing that.
So their curb cut would remain.
Their curb cut remains. I don't want to belabor this point. It's something you need to address.
Okay.
Their curb cut remains, and then immediately when you hit the property line, you are removing part of their driveway. So yes, you can stand before me and say the curb cut remains. Functionally, the full width of that curb cut, once you hit the property line, is diminished.
Okay. Yeah. No.
And
Like
the
I
PAP
said,
that was approved didn't show a diminished width.
understood. And like I was saying earlier, we have been coordinating with that neighbor, and we were looking at kind of maintaining our driveway. But in a case where that doesn't happen, we are still providing access.
You're providing different access.
It is reduced access, but it would still be compliant access.
So again, I'll turn to my two engineers as we go through this process, but I think that PAP for that southern lot would have to be modified because it's being reduced in functional purpose.
I believe so.
Thank you, Mark. Again, you're a conceptual, we're here for the first time this evening. I'm going to go over some of the items, and then I want the TRC to kind of evaluate, do you feel comfortable with all of these items potentially moving forward, or would you feel more comfortable that a number of these items are addressed and the applicant comes back to TRC? So I'm just going to go over a summary. Mark, do you have something to add?
Just wanted to add one thing, looking at the utilities. I did notice that you have underground electric going across State Road. Is that something that DOT is going to approve? Because I also have concerns that you're crossing town utilities as well with that underground electric. It would be better off having a pole on the other side of the road to bring an overhead to the property instead of taking it all the way across a state road.
Yeah, we can look at that kind of closer if there's a different approach you guys would prefer, but we would be pursuing a utility permit with RIDOT.
I will do my best to hit the highlights or in a summary form. Item number one was regarding health safety with regards to water supply and the closest location of existing hydrants within proximity of this site. And then number two would be solidifying fire access and accommodating the equipment that actually is in town. Understand that you've looked at turning radiuses, but we want to make sure we're apples to apples. Item number three was solidifying the stormwater as it relates to building footprints and foundations. I understand in Mr. Conboy's question that you said the two front buildings are intended to be on slab, but even a slab has a frost wall and a footing drain. And I saw outlets potentially for gutters, but I'm not sure there was a footing drain outlet for that frost wall for the foundation. Again, question, probably be 3A, versus 3, was just clarifying the inspection opportunities associated with your stormwater infiltration system. Item number 4 was from building regarding overlap with existing driveways and the consistency in between surveys. Item number 5 was the need for a waiver of garage doors facing a state route and the special management district, and either elimination or reorientation of those. Item number 6 was accommodating trash removal. Item number 7 was evaluating mail delivery. Item number 8 was a concern about some of the grading associated with side slopes and pushing water within your driveway system. There was a reference to contour number 140, a general comment regarding overall grading and side slopes on the easterly side and southerly side of the property. Item number 10 was evaluating storm drainage to make sure you had no point discharges versus sheet flow, and mimicking existing conditions versus modifying those. Item 11 was clarifying sewer connections and whether or not it's a chimney versus a saddle orientation. So there was 11. Item number 12 was cleaning up inconsistencies between existing conditions and actual conditions that exist in the field today. Evaluating what is regulatory compliant without any need for waiver requests. Looking at the potential reorientation of homes, this is all under 12. Evaluating your overflow parking needs. And then item number 13 was clarifying and solidifying the modifications made to the southern driveway as an effect of what you're proposing to do on your property. And item 14, and again, my understanding is you're attempting to meet a regulatory requirement that mandates underground utilities. So your interpretation of that was from wherever it exists to the site, and you can correct me if that's not your interpretation. So I think engineering's looking at coordinate with the state to see if they would prefer you to do a crossing pole from a planning perspective. We would prefer you go underground from where existing utilities are without doing another crossing pole that can be hit, that you can have down wires on. So I understand the state and even the local municipality discourages utility cuts across existing roads and isn't, from a DPS perspective, offended by another placement of a pole. Those are the 14 plus or minus items that have with a couple subsections. Is there anything anyone feels I may have overlooked in that summary? Now, I guess the question is are those 14 plus or minus items you feel, or do you feel things need to come back to the TRC? I'll start with Dennis.
My suggestion would be to come back to the TRC, please.
Okay. Mark?
My feeling is that they should come back to the TRC with those corrections.
I would agree, and I think that would set the applicant up for success when it goes before the planning board.
And again, if there's a motion to table, which I think I'll call for now, you still have full access to planning, engineering, fire to work in the next month on trying to clarify these so you don't, I'm going to use the terminology, guess at what everyone's thinking, that if you have an idea, feel free to schedule a meeting with us and DPS and we can walk through these items. We can talk about multiple opportunities to make changes versus you heading down one path, coming back another month, and TRC saying, well, why'd you go in that direction versus this direction? So we're more than willing to meet with you and with this project along.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Okay. And again, thank you for your patience with us
Yeah,
today, and we look forward to working with you on this project.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for your time. We appreciate the
Do you have
feedback.
any questions of us?
I think we got kind of most of the feedback we were looking for today. If we could circle back for a moment on the neighboring driveway, would there be, I know we've been talking about relief a lot, if we were to provide an access easement to keep that existing driveway, would the board be opening to looking at landscape buffering relief along that just to provide that existing driveway there?
I'll try and answer that representing the knowledge of the planning board. I think it's something that is up for discussion, but if that's what again, your client's trying to fit 5 units where potentially 5 units without relief don't fit. The option is 4 units accommodating an easement and you don't need relief. So it's a balance.
Understood.
So I think your challenge is to find where that balance is and how you're going to address that. To simply say to accommodate everything, but I need more relief to fit my 5 units is a harder discussion without bringing an additional element of design to the table.
Okay.
Okay. Long way to talk about a potential solution, but I think it's something up for discussion.
Okay. No, we appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Thank you.
Here in the discussion, I believe I would entertain a motion to table this agenda item until next month for anticipation of revisions to the plans and additional discussion.
I can make that motion.
Thank you, Susan. Do I hear a second to the motion to table this?
Second, Mr. Abbott.
Second from Mr. Borman. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
We are moving into the next agenda item. Right on time. So I'll get that started, then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Wagner. Just bear with me. So our next agenda item is listed as C2. It's associated with a change to a previously approved plan, major multi-household land development project, 571 Main Street. The applicant is requesting to change the previously approved conceptual master plan to reconfigure units and site design of the proposed 36-unit residential development and associated site improvements originally approved on November 13, 2014. We have Mr. Landry here representing the applicant. I just, before I hand it off to Mr. Wagner, I just have one item in Realize Direct Conceptual Master Plan, and other things will be sorted out at preliminary as it relates to refined storm drainage, driveway locations, topography, architecture, layout, landscaping, all those things. I think potentially one question that we've seen over the history of this project is, in the initial approval and conceptual plan, you had a through road. So you had Perry Ave as one access, and you also had the side street as a second access. In this new conceptual plan, you're breaking that through road. So one access to a side street, second access to a side street. The mansion house remains intact without a through road running through it. I think the question as this application progresses is, what improvements is your applicant proposing to make to Perry Ave? You have a 20 to 24 foot wide internal access drive that is proposed to go out to Perry Ave, which is between 10 and 14 feet, which necessarily can't accommodate two-way traffic and the increased density you're proposing on your applicant's property. So that's the biggest issue that I think has to be addressed as this project moves forward, whether it's done a conceptual master or for the preliminary. I just want to say it's an issue that ultimately is going to need to be addressed. So I need to part for a meeting that starts in a few moments, so I will turn this over to Mr. Wagner, who's the Deputy Director of the Planning Department. So thank you, Brian, and thank you, members.
All right. I guess we'll get started right away with Dennis. Comments from Fire?
Yes, thank you. I'm already looking at the fire department access, which does meet my standard. The only question I have is, you are leaving the existing entrance coming off of Main Street the same way. Is that correct?
I got ahead of myself. It's okay. Let's let Mr. Landry talk about his the modifications to the plan and what's going on here, and then we'll get to the members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wagner. Attorney Matthew Landry on behalf of the applicant, and I don't want to cut anyone off. I know most of us are familiar with this project, and we're at the last planning board meeting, but just high-level overview. Molly Titus from Dupree will get into the technical stuff and certainly address concerns over fire access and drainage and things of that nature. But it's been at least a year since we've been in front of the committee, and for those of you who aren't aware, there's been some substantive changes to the plan based on feedback from the initial planning board meeting that we had on this amended master plan. It all stems from an approved master plan that was a result of some litigation that happened many, many years ago. And that was resolved, and really the crux of the settlement agreement between the applicant and the town was to work in concert with the town to address a number of the drainage and runoff issues along the rear of the property that are pretty notorious, as I understand. And there was a clear agreement to work with the town and try to address these things, and that's some of the reason for the redesign here. There's been a reduction in the amount of units from the previous iteration. The original approval and even our original amended master plan application had 36 units. That was the cap under the approved master plan. We've since reduced that to 28 units. It's far less dense than what would be allowed by right on the property. We're not requesting any waivers from setbacks or anything. So there's been some substantive changes really just in regards to density. The southeast corner of the property, we've reoriented those units. There's 14 units there to be more of a courtyard style. That's consistent with the original approval. There was some changes to that with our initial amended master plan, and there was a desire to keep that more concentrated in a courtyard style. It's more attractive, pulls it further away from Belmont, and reduces some of the visual impacts along Main Street in Belmont. Really the most significant change, though, that Molly can get into is the extension of Perry Ave, and we're completely aware that that's going to be an undertaking, and we need to explore the extent of the road construction and access and utilities that are coming in. But the idea is to improve Perry Avenue, but not quite as far as we had proposed with the last iteration. We had it going much further west to the left side of the existing water body and the wetland body there. There were some changes in the regulations and almost a year delay in getting DEM to do an edge verification and verifying that the drainage would work here with this redesign. So we're proposing the road to now come into the east side of that existing water body and not extending Perry as far down to the left as originally proposed. Again, all new utilities, widening the road. That's going to be a lengthy discussion with the town to make sure that we can do that in a manner that accommodates the development. There is an existing, single lane drive to the rear of the property now. This proposed roadway would be in sort of that location. It would be wider, but is along the path of an existing roadway. We've eliminated some of the units in that northwestern quadrant. Just speaking through about the thruway, one of the reasons for that change from the original iteration is that we wanted to preserve as much of the natural or existing features to the mansion, to the home. And by eliminating that thruway, you're preserving a lot of the characteristics of the home, and it really isn't as disruptive to what's there now. So that was a deliberate method to try to preserve the character of the home, which would remain. So it's 28 units reduced from 36, 29, including the existing home. One comment that came up at the planning board meeting was the existence of a crosswalk along Main Street. Molly and I were just talking before the meeting. That seems to be a carryover from the original approval. I think it was something that was asked for. There may be a change in opinion as to whether or not that should remain there. I think it's open for discussion. We can certainly remove it. But that was one of the specific comments that came up. That existing crosswalk seems to be a carryover from the original approval. That was something that was asked for, but I think we're flexible on that. So that's it. DEM gave us, looked at the wetland edges, and submitted a letter in August of 2025. So that's why we're here. We're coming back before you with this redesign approach. But again, it's far less dense, and we think the redesign and the existing water bodies in the northwest will help with some of the drainage, runoff concerns, and we can go through that. So I'll table it there and let Molly address any technical issues. I don't know if you want to do the roundtable discussion or have Molly just talk about some of the changes, if that's helpful, and then we can go from there.
No, I think we should go with Molly and get everybody's, get all your information in, and then we'll go around the table.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Molly Titus from Dubuque Engineering. Beyond what Matt said, I don't have a lot to offer other than just some clarity on the crosswalk. So the crosswalk is shown as proposed, and that is a carryover from the 2014 approval. In doing some research, our original approval in 2014 had a sidewalk coming through that existing driveway, and I believe that's why the crosswalk was added. I was going back through some of the old records, so we would not like a crosswalk in that location. The existing drive is to remain. Like I said, we would prefer to remove it, and part of the planning board's comments was to, seek DOT approval for that crosswalk, but we would like to remove that from the proposal. Beyond that, as Matt mentioned, the site plan is improved circulation within the property, but does not provide a connection between Perry and Belmont. So we'd be looking to have two distinct sets of utilities. We'd have distinct stormwater systems. And in keeping with the discussions on Perry Avenue, we had proposed new water service, new sewer, and it was the understanding of the applicant that this would involve some redesign and construction of Perry Avenue, which he has agreed to do as part of this project. Beyond that, we've done some very limited soil testing. We verified the wetlands to confirm we can design a drainage system that will work on this property and alleviate some of the concerns on Perry Avenue. Beyond that, I don't have a lot. We are at master plan, so any questions, concerns? As you said, I did provide the fire turn movement plan. We're proposing new hydrants. There's existing hydrants on Main. There's not one on Belmont. There's a private hydrant at the Elks, and then we're proposing a new one in the rear of the property.
Is that it, Molly?
That's it.
All right. Well, then now we can move on to the rest of the board members. So go ahead, Dennis.
Apologies again. Got ahead of myself. So you've answered my question in reference to the way that's going to come out where the crosswalk was. So that's the existing entrance. It's going to maintain as
I would think, that's a gated entrance right now, but in the event of an emergency, that's obviously another means of egress and access.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because we do have fire access to that gate.
Yes.
Being there, which is awesome. I like the fact that you're giving the fire turn radiuses and access points, upgrading the water flow and hydrant system within the area. The hydrant located at the Elks property is not classified as a hydrant we will utilize due to it being a private hydrant. And you did mention that you were going to put one on Perry at the entrance in the or within that area.
Yeah, it shows on the site plan. It's kind of partially down next to Unit 14 is where we've shown it right now, but we're flexible if you want it closer to Perry.
Okay, no, that's fine. If it goes on to that, it would be classified because that is in a private property as a private hydrant.
Yes.
So, okay, not a problem. Thank you.
Mark?
I do like this layout much better than the previous ones. However, I just have some questions concerning mainly utilities and the location of a couple of the units. First of all, unit number 1 and 2 are within the area subject to flooding. How is that going to be worked out, given that it's in a flood area?
So that's just storm flowage between the two existing wetland bodies. We would be looking to create an entire stormwater network behind those units to alleviate some of the problems in Perry Avenue and the existing drainage coming down from Highland. So basically, the 1 and 2 area, everything to the west of that would be stormwater in the future, attenuation.
I did have a lot of questions concerning the improvements of Perry Avenue. I know that's going to be the big question. I know that road has a lot of boulders on it. It looks like it has ledge on that, and the road is shifted to one side more than the other. And also you're going to be working against the contours when you construct the sewer main through there. So that sewer main is probably going to be very deep at some points. So I do have some construction concerns on how that's all going to get worked out. And also is there going to be some sort of turnaround on Perry Avenue as well, so that cars don't have to go into the development to turn around?
That's That's a great question. So at present, the right-of-way, it dead ends. It doesn't have a turnaround or anything. But at this time, the property owner at the end of Perry Avenue is actually using the right-of-way. That's one of the reasons we actually truncated our development. So, at this time, there's a basketball hoop there, and it is being utilized as yard. So, I think that would want to be a delicate negotiation between the town and maybe that property owner. But our client was originally willing to improve the entirety of that road, but I don't know that that's in the best interest of the neighbors and would be well received.
Okay, well, my concern is because you can have an increase in traffic on that road, so there will be a need to turn around and not go into the development to do that somehow with a hammerhead or something, fairly simple, but some means to do that without going on someone else's property, pretty much to do that, to turn.
Yeah, understood. The right-of-way is 50 feet wide. Like you said, the challenge will be the contours, and we'll have to do some more survey to find a location that's not egregious to the folks using it now.
Okay, and I don't know if we've discussed this before, but the UICs that you're proposing for storage for the stormwater, they're pretty much located in the center of the site there.
Yeah.
Do you have any water table data on that? I'm just wondering if it's high water tables where you're proposing to do that.
The front yard was not terrible. We were down 4 to 6 feet. We have done some very limited, but we will be doing, site-wide testing once we go into full design.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
All set, Mark? Jamie?
Good morning. Two questions I have for you, Molly, related to initially, last time this was before, let's talk about a phasing plan. Is there a phasing plan in this, or proposed phasing for the site?
Not at this time. If we get to that and during preliminary, we could address it and provide documentation.
And, not building zone related, but related to the crosswalk. So just Belmont Street doesn't have any sidewalks, nor Perry, just thinking about walkability. And there is on the south side of Main Street a sidewalk that extends all the way into town. So, I think the question of, providing, residents of the site access in some form would be, good interest, but that's something to contemplate. I'm not sure if this is a question that you can answer, but related to the existing dwelling that's there, there was initially a question about a bed and breakfast. I don't know if is that still on the table? Or
that's not part of this proposal. It's been removed.
Okay. And a lot of the narrative mentioned two-bedroom design units. Is there willingness from the applicant to make that a deed restriction two-bedroom, or is it two-bedroom at initial construction and then in the future, 2 years later, the office or the rec room becomes a third or fourth bedroom?
I don't think I could speak on that.
That's a good question. We can talk to the applicant. There were originally 10 3-bedrooms proposed that were all removed with the amended master plan. So the intent is 2 bedrooms, but if it's a deed restriction or something that would make the town and give them some more comfort, we can certainly explore that. I'm not sure he would be opposed to that.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Rich?
So the intent, eventually you're going to come in with something on Perry Ave and tell us what that's going to be. Okay. So I think the grades work, but again, like Mark's saying, it gets pretty deep in that one area. If there's a lot of ledge, this could be pretty difficult, but that would be on the applicant. The only thing I'll tell you is about sewer is that we will not allow you to force main to that system. So you would put a manhole at the edge of the property, and then it would gravity to the sewer main, and it's effectively a main extension. We would also ask that each property gets a service lateral provide them the option in the future that they can connect. I don't think any of them are connected. They all have septic systems, I believe.
That is correct, with the exception of the house all the way at the end. Apparently, he discharges to the north and has a
Okay, he
connection
goes
to
up-
Highland. Yeah.
He goes up to Highland, is it
Yes.
Highland?
Yep.
Yeah, it would be Highland there, so yeah. So anyways, lateral for each. As far as the turnaround goes, and what I've done in the past, in a previous life, is, you know, we might entertain a turnaround at the entrance of this. So it would be, you know, it would provide some sort of easement to allow that would always in perpetuity be a public turnaround. So you widen out the entrance enough, make it a turnaround. What I like about those is that nobody ends up parking in them, you know, because it'll be the entrance of this facility. So, you know, just allow people to use that to turn around, but it doesn't have to be posted or anything, but it just has to be left open. And then in the future, you know that people are going to use it. They'll use it if they have to. And then be able to back. You got to have something to back into when they head out. If that's something that they can entertain, that your client can entertain, or you've got to provide a hammerhead or something. You have to have something at the end of this road. We just don't want people. They're already they're receiving, I think, great disruption. You know, let's just alleviate some of that with the proper turnaround. But that's all I have at this point. I mean, this is, you know, effectively the same as what's been pushed before, but with fewer units. I get it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Susan?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, I've seen this project so many times. I don't have any questions left. I like this layout a lot better than what we had been seeing in the past. I also appreciate that you've worked on the architecture on all four sides of the structures so that regardless of which way they're oriented, it will be a good view from Main Street or from Belmont Avenue. I have just a couple of questions. Because it's not a cut-through road, and those driveways, especially the one on the north of the property, is only serving those units. I'm thinking about my street right now, which has become a whole lot more narrow because of all the snowbanks. And we're all neighbors, and we just sort of pull over and let somebody go by. Does this need to be full width for two-way traffic? If it's just basically a driveway that's serving neighbors. And I know that we've got fire engine issues and, you know, what we require, but because it's only serving a handful of houses, to me, two-way traffic seems maybe excessive to serve only that many units. And can we consider narrowing that? It's a driveway now. Maybe have a crescent pull off on one side just in case there's a conflict. But I don't know how often during the course of a day you'll even have two-way traffic on this small driveway that accesses a handful of units. And if that could be narrowed down so that there's less pavement, more green space, to me, I would find that appealing if that fits within our town regulations. You know, it's a private little driveway now, and it's not a cut-through. And could we reinforce shoulders or have a little pull-out, but then squeeze down that driveway, and maybe actually both driveways, because it's no longer a cut-through road. So I don't know if that's an option that I just wanted to sort of throw on the table that to me would be appealing. And I'd also just like to verify that the roadway that goes down to Main Street will continue to be gated as a walking path, except for emergency vehicles, and not a regular traffic access to Main Street.
Correct. Our main access will be off Belmont and the two-way scenario labeled as Road A on the plans.
Okay. So that will just continue to be gated, so it's not going to will not become a vehicle access point.
Correct.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you.
As far as the drive goes, I mean, we wouldn't be opposed to reducing it. Obviously, I would work with Mr. Bernier. We would go down to 20 feet as long as the turning movements work. You know, as far as the applicant and the project is concerned, we don't want extra pavement or desire it. It would just be safety.
You know, just along the width of the road is there are no parking restrictions on that road. So out there, and I'm going to imagine that the people that live along that road park and use those parking spaces. Just keep that in mind.
I was talking about the internal one. Right. That's a question with Perry Avenue also, that, you know, my street is one width right now, and we make it work. So, yeah. those are all of my questions at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any final comments? No? Okay, I will try and run through things, remembering that we are at master plan and that, we're still waiting to get to preliminary for final utility and drainage and all of that kind of engineering. The one major comment that I heard that we definitely need to address at master plan is the end of Perry Road and the provision of some kind of turnaround, whether it's in the right of way or incorporated into the entrance of the development. So expect to see that. I think we should add also, number 2, add some clarity to the plans that the access to Main Street will continue to be gated and used primarily for pedestrian access and emergency vehicle access only, and that it will not become a regular vehicular access for residents. Let's see, what else? And that the applicant will look into possibly narrowing the private driveways, maybe by use of incorporating reinforced turf along the edges where necessary to meet the standards of the fire department. And that's all I really have, considering that this is early on at master plan at this stage. If I missed anything, somebody welcome to chime in. All right, I would ask if there is a motion to move this on to the planning board.
I'll make that motion.
A second?
I'll second.
So we have a motion from Jamie Gorman, a second from Susan Axelrod. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll move this forward to the planning board again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. That being the end of this applicant's presentation, do we have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion from Susan. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Gorman. All in favor? We are adjourned at 10:25. Thank you, everybody.